Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's so great to see everyone's faces and some new people and some good friends. And we're just very excited to be doing this evening. This is Alabama Blue School. So my name is Emily Jortner, and I'll be moderating the session this evening. I want to ask everybody a lot of you have been doing this already. If you are on a phone or on a laptop, if you can just drop your name and some contact info in the chat, that would be great. We just want to make sure that we can keep in touch with all of you. We might do that annoying thing of asking you later, like, how did you like it? We might do that, or we might just want to get to know you better. So this is great. Seeing lots of folks, and I'm going to put my information in the chat. And we also have Anando Banerjee is going to be driving the slide presentation tonight and doing some technical stuff. Chris Nelson is with us, and he'll be letting people in from the waiting room. And our wonderful presenter this evening is Linda Turner. She is the chair of the Houston County Democratic Executive Committee. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to say a couple of very quick remarks. This is our first session of Blue School, Alabama Blue School, and what we're trying to do with this, as you probably know already, is to create a space where Democrats who live and work in Alabama can get together and learn from each other, share what we know, collaborate where appropriate, and grow together. We're also here to make connections and to get to know one another. So I want to ask all of you to invite friends, invite people that you know who are Democrats or who might be leaning in that direction, and invite them to come. We'll be doing this again next month. And everyone is welcome to join us. In the spirit of that openness and sharing, those of us on the planning committee for Blue School have decided that we want to call everybody by their first names. And that is sometimes a little bit different in the South, but we want to make this a space where we're all, kind of just sharing with each other and learning from one another. So feel free to use people's first names. The next thing I want to say is that we are going to have a presentation from Linda Turner, and the presentation is the basics of forming a county executive committee. She's going to give this presentation for about 20 minutes. We'll all be muted during that time. After that 20 minutes, Linda will answer questions, but only from the chat. So if you have a question, a topic that you would like to discuss or learn more about, please write that in the chat and we will try to get to your question. We're going to finish at 8 p.m. on the dot. We're not going to go any later than that. One other thing that I want to say is that the United Democratic Clubs of Alabama will be having our business meeting at 8 o'clock. So if any of you are interested in being at that meeting, you're welcome to stay. But of course you don't have to. So having said all of that, I want to turn the time over to Linda Turner from Houston County, who's going to do the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Emily, and thank all of you for being here and welcome. I am by no means the expert on this, but I have managed to muddle my way through, and hopefully you can get something out of this tonight. When forming a county executive committee, you must remember that the information being provided is only a guide. Election and campaign reporting laws change often, and it is the responsibility of each political committee to ensure they are following the current laws. So this is accurate to my knowledge to date. You can always seek assistance at any time from the Alabama Secretary of State's office. They have been very helpful when I have needed to reach out to them. We will be discussing how to formally organize a county political party into an IRS Code section political action committee. This is a designation of a nonprofit organization for a political party, committee, association, or fund operating with the primary purpose of influencing an election or selection of candidates to political office. This infrastructure is necessary for the purpose of fundraising, mandatory reporting, for updating officer changes and identifying cost and any future dissolution of the PAC. So if you want to move to slide 2, Adondo. This is based on the Alabama's Fair Campaign Practices Act. And it defines a political action committee as any political committee, club, association, political party, or other group of one or more persons which receives or anticipates receiving contributions and makes or anticipates making expenditures to or on behalf of any Alabama state or local elected official, proposition, candidate, principal campaign committee, or other political action committee. That wording is a little confusing, but basically if you're trying to elect people, you're a political action committee, especially if you're raising funds for that purpose. Slide 3. Further, a political action committee must file a statement of organization online with the Secretary of State website. This must be done within 10 days of receiving contributions or making expenditures in an aggregate that exceeds $1,000, or within 10 days of anticipating receiving contributions or making expenditures in an aggregate that exceeds $1,000. All PACs must file the statement of organization and subsequent campaign finance reports online with the Secretary of State. So if you go to the Attorney General's website, it'll talk about the 3 items you need: articles of incorporation and, or in this case, a certificate of organization. You'll have to form bylaws and you'll have to get an IRS number. Okay. But how do you get there? The first thing you're going to need to do is ensure that you have at least a chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. We just did this, Ben Harris and I and Sherry just did an organizational meeting in Henry County, and we now have the executive board and are ready for them to go forward with some of these steps. Yeah. Then after you know those individuals and held that organizational meeting, you're going to hold a meeting of the 4 officers that you've identified. At this meeting, you're going to need to identify each of the individual officers by their name. You're going to need contact, physical address, email addresses, PO boxes. You're going to need all of this for the certificate of formation. At that same meeting, you're going to have to decide on a committee name, and if you so choose, an appropriate acronym. I don't know what slide we're on for sure, but I'm just going to keep talking until I see that we need to change it. You're going to, after you decide on your committee name and acronym, you will set up email addresses for your county committee so that all 4 individuals have access and can check it. You're going to determine the mailing address of your county committee. Where's the mail going to go? You're going to decide on what bank you want to open your county committee account in. You're going to have to give a lot of consideration to the signature authority on the checks. At the least, there should always be at least 2 approving and signing authorities. In my case, in Houston County, it's the chair and the treasurer. And we can authorize payments up to $100. If anything has to be approved over $100, it has to go to the full Houston County Executive Democratic Committee. So that would include all of our vice chair caucus members. And we do that in a written format over Gmail, over GroupMe. We put in what we want to buy and the amount, where we want to buy it from. And then people put in their comments, yes, they approve or they don't. Okay. Once you decide on all of those procedures, you're going to ensure that the meetings are printed, signed, and dated by all present. So the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the secretary all need to sign those minutes. When I went to the bank to open our bank account, they did ask for those minutes. They also made each of us sign the cards. When we first went, we tried to go individually. We discovered that that was less than ideal. So we finally made an appointment and went in and sat down with the bank person and made those, got those signatures and gave them the documents. You really should scan and keep in the office or a shared Google Drive or some sort those documents for prosperity and as a historical record. Okay. See the next slide. Okay. This is where you go to the Secretary of State's website and you're going to fill out a name reservation form. You're going to print it and file it with your county probate judge's office and pay a $25 fee. I recommend you keep copies until the originals are returned to you. You should only have to do this once, unless at a later date you decide to dissolve or rename the organization. When it is stamped and returned to you, you may proceed to the next steps. This is to ensure the name you wish to use is not already in use and will prevent conflicts in the future about who's filing with the Secretary of State. You want to show them the beginning of that form, Adondo, what it looks like? You simply follow the instructions, answer the questions, and complete it just like it says. It comes with a set of instructions. Thank you. The next slide is the Domestic Nonprofit Corporation Certificate of Formation. And you will download this and complete it also from the Secretary of State's website. You will follow the instructions on the form, file this with the Office of Judge Probate, and pay the appropriate filing fee of $100. It's self-explanatory and not all that difficult. When changes occur to the officers and or the contact information of your organization offices, you will have to amend this form. So if you don't mind showing what the Domestic Certificate of Formation looks like. And there is one that up at the top actually says amendment as well. So you just have to find the right form and file it. But keep in mind, they're going to charge you that filing fee again. Okay. All right. The next slide, we're going to talk about IRS exempt a little bit. In order to open a bank account, you have to have entity identification number from the IRS. For our purposes, we only need to fill out the SS4, the application for the EIN number, and then they will send you usually 2 separate documents, providing you with a user ID and a password, and then a PIN. Unless you happen to raise $25,000 or more, this is the only thing you need. But you do need to keep it in a safe place, accessible to people who have access to the bank account, and not always, and don't keep your password, your ID, and your PIN in the same area. Just make sure that all 4 party members, executive board members, know where it's at. Okay. If, I know that doesn't apply to us, but should any of us have to accidentally get $25,000 or more, there will be other IRS requirements. And all of that can be found on the IRS website. So if you're showing what the SS4 looks like, please. Can you pull it up or just?
Hey, Linda, I'm sorry. This is the only link I've got. I guess if I clicked on nonprofit org, that would take us to the form.
Look at it. Yeah.
Looks like it.
Application information. Yeah, look at the bottom of this. That looks very much like it, yes. But if you have trouble finding it, like I said, you can always call the Secretary of State. That office has always been very helpful. So, yeah, SS Form 4. Thank you. And again, you want to keep all of these in a secure place, but accessible to the 4 executive committee members. If you should ever have to dissolve for any reason, a committee, a PAC, you will need to complete a final notice of dissolution with the Secretary of State. And you will have to make sure that all of your reporting forms are up to date. I highly recommend that you contact the Secretary of State if you ever have to do that. The ethics officer can keep you from having to pay penalties and fees. Okay, go to the next slide. When opening and setting up the bank account, here are some ideas. Make an appointment. All individuals with signature authority will need to go to the bank and sign the bank card. This is important because currently my treasurer is in the hospital having surgery. So we would be unable to conduct any business financially if myself and the vice chair could not also go and, get funds or write checks. So just remember, all 4 people, it's really important. When you go to the bank, you're going to need your EIN letter, your signed and dated minute meetings, 2 forms of ID. And in my case, we bank with Friend. They did want each of our Social Security card numbers. That may or may not be the case for others. Next up, let's see. Yeah, registering a committee. One of the other things I did before I move on to the actual registration is that I created a fact sheet with all that information in it. Where we bank, who's the current people in charge, the EIN numbers, and it's kept in a folder in the front of the office so that should someone need it urgently, we would be able to direct them to it. Okay. So again, just remember that anytime you have important information, you do need to make sure you have a physical as well as electronic record of it. All right, registering your county committee with the Secretary of State. You will go online and you'll follow the directions. Okay. Complying with this, with the Fair Campaign Practices Act, is mandatory when you meet the thresholds as outlined in the law. You must file the financial reports in a timely manner. The Secretary of State's website is set up so that it will send you an electronic notice prior to the report being due. That's why that email, that Gmail account or joint Gmail account is important. My secretary's in the hospital, but because we have the Houston County Gmail account, I'm able to monitor and make sure those reports are getting done. Okay. You should familiarize yourself with the Secretary of State's website and read the instructions, just so that you are at least once aware of where the stuff is and what it is. Okay. These are just the beginning steps necessary to comply with and register with the Secretary of State. This training is not meant to show you and teach you how to respond to the Secretary of State's reports. That should be a separate class for the chair and the treasurer at a later date. Failure to comply with the Fair Campaign Practices Act will result in fines and penalties. There are schedules, also hard copy schedules, that tell you when the reports are due. You can print those out like I have, and I have them on a binder, actually a clipboard in the office. Adonda, do you know if you have a link to that?
I do. Let me show. So from this website, you can see political action committee registration. And then I swear it's got the calendar here somewhere too.
Yeah, that is the site, and you may have to scroll and look, but you can find it. It's not really that hard. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I'll stop messing around.
So yeah, please, like I said, make yourself familiar with the Secretary of State's election website. It's very informative. The filing of the reports can be complicated initially. That's why I have provided you in several places the telephone number to the Secretary of State's office. And again, remind you that if you ever have to dissolve or close a PAC, always seek their advice and make sure that you have done all the things that they want you to do. Next slide. These are the resources that I use: the FEC, Secretary of State, National Democratic Party bylaws, Alabama Democratic Party bylaws, ADP's County Democratic Executive Committee manual. I do have some recommended additional trainings here for the chair and the secretaries. I've been doing this now 3.5 years, and we just now have some idea of what the budget should be and the amount of money we need to raise. Compliance plan, that's some sort of checks and balances. We have both a computer system that checks our banking account, as well as myself and Amanda double checking, printing out reports and looking at them. So next slide, if we have one, because that pretty much completes my information. These forms will be provided to you. You can send any feedback to myself at ltisgood@yahoo.com or to Emily at emilylcdc@gmail.com. That's comments about the training, questions later on if you think of them. And I thank all of you for your time, and I hope it was helpful. Thank you. Emily?
Thanks so much, Linda. Yeah, round of applause for Linda. Linda knows this stuff backwards and forwards, and she walks the walk as well. So she's someone I always go to if I have any kind of question. So if anybody has a question for Linda, you can go ahead and write it in the chat here. The first one that I can see is from Marcia Sturdivant. Her question is, should clubs create PACs or become PACs?
I have my own ideas about this. This is not anything anyone's told me. It's just something that I kind of came up with myself. I believe that counties that have 50,000 or more registered voters probably should go ahead, if they have an executive board, and create a PAC. You're going to raise more than $1,000. Clubs, if you don't believe you're going to be involved in raising $1,000 or in any way, shape, fashion, collecting $1,000, then I would say no. But it does apply to any one or more persons that collects money with the intent of affecting the outcome of an election, a candidate election, a proposition, whatever, any of it.
Okay. We've got a question here. Linda, would you speak about the importance of the committee ensuring that anyone with access to the funds is bonded? Do you have any insight on that?
I have no particular insight on it. We have not raised enough, in my opinion, that we needed to be bonded. Should there be some issue with funds, I feel confident that we could cover whatever the issue is. Our gross at any year that I've been involved has not reached more than $4,000. So I think it would be a waste of money to look at bonding for any of that. But each PAC will have to make that determination on their own.
Okay. And I think one of the things that we're talking about, and the people that we're kind of aiming at, are people in counties that maybe don't have an organization yet, or who are trying to start one back up. And so that could be clubs, that could be, but these will be smaller organizations for now. Okay. So, and then another question here was just to clarify, any group that collects more than $1,000 for the purpose of influencing an election probably should organize a PAC. Is that?
Yeah, there's no probably to it. If you don't do it within that 10-day time frame and the Secretary of State catches you, you will be paying penalties. We paid a $300 penalty early on because we missed the 10 days. We didn't form it within the 10 days as required by law when we reached that $1,000 mark.
Okay.
So my advice to you is, if you think you're going to hit it, I don't care if you've only got $100 right now, go ahead and do the paperwork. You can always dissolve it, like I said, if something happens. And I will say this, as a chair, vice chair, if you don't have anybody coming in behind you, and like I'm 64, fixing to turn 65, I don't plan on doing this past 75. If somebody doesn't come in behind me, I will be dissolving this. I will not leave my name out there responsible for it, because that makes me responsible for any funds that anyone takes in that name.
Okay. Excuse me. Any other questions? So there was a question about whether the video will be made available, and yes, it will. So we are going to provide a packet to anyone who wants it that will have the PowerPoint slides. It'll have a one-page summary of everything that Linda's been talking about. And we will also make this video available. I'm not sure yet if we're going to have a YouTube channel, or we'll just make it easy for y'all to have this information in one place. Okay, now Delandrian is talking about financial reports. Linda, do you want to just quickly kind of hit that point?
As I said, once you register online with the Secretary of State, their system is set up to send you a notice of when to file. Sometimes it'll be monthly, sometimes it'll be weekly. And if you're not a political action committee, but you are instead a political campaign committee, it could be daily as it gets closer to the election. So yes, someone has to be dedicated to take care of this. Did that answer the question?
I think it does. I think that does. Let's see. Now, here's another question. So this procedure works the same way as a candidate setting up his or her campaign committee. And I think that's different.
There are some differences for the campaigns, because you have to go through your county chair, your executive board in order to qualify. So there are other steps for that. And if you have people running in your county, if you ask, your probate judge will invite the Secretary of State down to give a class on on forming and reporting political campaign committees. Even the maps are different.
Okay. Let's see. Here's a question from Chris Clevenger in Lee County. What portions of your budget, so in your county executive committee, were the most important for you to nail down and the most difficult to nail down? And is there any operational insight that you can share about that? Line items that everyone should be on the lookout for. So those of us who might be out here in the beginning stages of forming this committee, and we're thinking about having more than $1,000, what are we looking to spend that on, and what can
Well, the first $125 is already spent in this process. I mean, that's the first thing you need to know. All right. The second thing is that some counties that are large enough should maintain an office all the time. And that in Houston County, we do. And we found the smallest office that we could afford, but could keep our stuff in and be able to maintain it. And we pay about $200 a month for it. So that's a line item we're always going to have. We've been lucky to have printers donated, as well as several iPads, tablets, whatever you call them, donated. So by members. And so our other really big expense, because I'm a big believer in printed information and flyers, is ink and paper. That's always a huge amount of money in that. But it's really going to be determined by your executive committee. What do they want to spend money on? We spent money on business cards because I thought it was important for us all to have one to hand out. It doesn't have our name on it, but it has the Houston County Democratic Party information on it, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, all that information is on there. So you guys have to decide how best to get your message out. Is it through printed material? I have self-funded all of the gas for door knocking. I don't know how much longer I want to keep doing that. But yeah, we've bought things like that. And tables, we had to have a couple of tables, folding tables. But once you buy those, it's kind of done. It's the office supplies that's gonna kill you.
Okay, we had another question. I apologize for missing this at first. So it says, Linda, if you haven't already, can you speak to who has the authority to get this started and how to gather a group like this together? So in the folks here who might be from counties where there isn't currently a county executive committee operating or a club, could you talk about how to make that happen?
Yeah. In Henry County, they had not, I'm just going to talk about what we just did so that you know. In Henry County, in my 4.5 years here, I was never able to get the stated chair to respond to me. And I had probably 15 people from Henry County attending my meetings as a result. And I truly didn't know what the best course of action was either. But when Ben Harris became the vice chair of the county affairs, we looked at the bylaws and determined that we could send a letter, or he could send a letter and ask that current chair for the last election minutes and the minute meetings to the times and dates that he has held them in the last year, and give them a number of days to respond. So in this case, we had someone who was in the seat, but was non-responsive. So Ben called him, he emailed him, he sent the letter. And when he did not respond, then Ben set the date for the meeting and sent it to Sherry, who is the ADC chair in Henry County, asked her to put it in the newspaper so that everyone would know. And then he asked me and Sherry to contact the people we had contacts for and advise them that it was happening and to help spread the word. So that's how we managed to get Henry County Executive Board elected last night. There was probably 15 to 20 people there. First thing he asked them was, do you guys want to be the body of the Henry County Democratic Party? And it was a unanimous yes. And then he just proceeded with the nominations and the elections. So that's the easiest way to if you don't currently have a party, is to contact him, okay? And he will help you get from point A to point B. And then once you're there, there are many of us who can help you get to the other state that you need, which is up and running and reporting things. And the best way to get people there is to call everybody you know. I mean, I even put it on my Facebook page. I shared it on my personal page. I had my executive staff share it. So there shouldn't have been anyone in Henry County that did not know that that was happening. And they knew at least within 20 days of the date. Does that answer all those questions?
Yep, I think that answers that one.
Emily, do you mind if I chime in just a little?
Please.
One thing from that answer that I thought was interesting was they asked who has the authority. We all have the authority. Anybody can put a county executive committee together. I think a couple takeaways from Linda's fantastic presentation is you need at minimum $125 and at minimum 4 people. Ideally, if you don't have 4 people, maybe you spend some time building up until you've got maybe 6, 7, 8 people comfortably, and then maybe you think about making that next step. But at minimum, $125, 4 people, and you're good to go.
Correct.
And I have another question, clarification as well. So this, these are sort of the legal and financial side of creating this organization. There's also the Alabama Democratic Party side and the bylaws of the Alabama Democratic Party. That's going to be what we will be discussing next month in May's Blue School session. We'll be talking about the organization of the Democratic Party and how that organization goes, from the DNC right on down to all of our county
precincts,
voting precincts, county committees. So that's where we can get, really detailed information about how this works, how this process works from the Democratic Party side of things, because this is more the legal and the financial process to set up a group.
Yes, this is just trying to make sure no one has to pay a penalty like I did or like my committee did.
Yeah. And I think there have been cases, haven't there, where if someone wants to run some sort of a negative campaign, or if somebody wants to make trouble, with Democrats, they could maybe start to look and pick apart some little mistakes that we've made. So we want to make sure that we're doing things properly and according to the law.
Correct. Every treasury report since the day I took over as chair is available in my office, to include the minute meetings of every monthly meeting that we've had. So there, anybody wants to come and review them, they're there.
I want to say one other thing, just also thanking Linda. Something that we've talked about before is to say that when we set up systems that operate in a predictable way and in a way that is inclusive of everyone who's participating, what that means is if somebody has to go to the hospital, that system can still continue to operate. Or if, you know, for whatever reason, any individual part or member of that group is not able to participate, that system can keep operating. And that is really the infrastructure that upon which we can build some greater successes for our party in Alabama.
I see a question I really want to answer.
Do it.
It says, if we are working toward getting people out to vote, is that a PAC activity or a club? That is an every Democrat activity. We should all be working to get out the vote, okay? The PAC activity is to keep you out of trouble with the law and the Secretary of State. But every person is responsible for getting out the vote. And the sooner every Democrat starts getting on that train, the sooner change comes.
I want to ask one more quick question. Linda, do you think that anybody could probably do this? Like, you don't have to be an accountant, a CPA, do you?
No, when I started this, I actually went to an attorney to ask him for his help, okay? And I figured it out in 90 days, and I still hadn't heard from him. And so I went and sat down with him and said, you know, what happened? And he said, well, I never got around to it. And so I was like, well, can you at least look this over and tell me if I'm, you know, done anything that you think is wrong? And he said, looks fine to me. So yes, and the same thing with the Secretary of State website and reporting. That part's easy. You know, if you can balance a checking account, then you should be able to be the treasurer. I mean, it's pretty well that simple.
And I like something that you've said before, Linda, which is everybody, at least all the officers, should have access to this information and know the basics of doing it, so that there aren't, I think it's called a single point of failure, when you have one person who's the only person in an organization who knows how to do a specific job. Again, if that person, you know, runs into difficulty, then everything falls apart. So it's
Correct.
good to hear that this is really doable. And Linda does not even bill by the quarter hour. So you're getting all of this. Linda's condensed all of this for us, and we are going to make this available in a Google Drive that will be accessible to everybody. And again, we'll include the PowerPoint, one-page summary, some more detailed information as well, but you'll have all the links and all of this stuff. Well, does anybody have anything else to add? Did I miss a question? I've got one more message down here. Steve Hubbard says, thank you. Okay, Linda, anything you want to say in closing?
I just want to say that is 28 more people who can go and spread the news that there are working Democrats in Alabama, and get on board. Okay, we can do this at the county level. We have to do this at the county level. And thank y'all very much for giving me your time and attention.
Thank you, Linda. So we're going to be doing this once a month for, I don't know, the foreseeable future. We started with this very practical information. Next month is going to be about understanding how the Democratic Party is organized. That is something that we get questions about all the time, and I'm sure that all of us have had those questions. What's the difference between a club and a county executive committee? What's this SDUC thing? So we're just going to be just talking about giving you that information. The month after that, June, is going to be about how to recruit volunteers, to recruit members to your organization. And then the month after that is going to be about making sure that your volunteers can hit the ground running, making sure that you can create a program of events and activities that will keep your volunteers motivated, busy, and engaged. So everyone who's here, thank you so much for coming. I hope that you can come next month. I hope you can come the month after that as well. I also hope that you will share, again, an invitation with some friends, because we're really trying to just reach out to all the Democrats we know who are out there in Alabama and just make sure that we're all on the same page about this stuff. So much good information here. So many amazing Democrats in Alabama. The more we get together, the better we'll do, the stronger we'll be. One other thing I want to say really quickly, if you haven't done it yet, please just drop your name and a little piece of contact information in the chat if you can, an email address or a phone number. And we want to keep in touch with you. And we also want to we want to share the packet with you that will have this information. Okay. Thanks again to everyone. And let's see. How about everybody unmutes and we can have a little, you can be heard.
We can have a chorus of goodbyes and thank yous.
Thank you, Linda.
Perfect.
Chorus.
Perfect. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Hey, Democrats.
Linda and everyone
Thank you
else.
so much.
Great
participated
information
in
tonight,
this.
Linda. Great.
Great
Thank
information.
y'all.
Great
I
job, yeah.
appreciate it. Adonda,
Good night, everybody.
Emily, thank you. Chris, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you guys. It wouldn't have been nearly as neat.
Thank you, Linda and Emily.
Good night.
See y'all
Thanks
next
so
month.
much.
Great job.
We're
Great job.
We'll have,
Good night.
good night.
Hi, Miss Emily.
Good night, Carolyn. Good to see you.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy.
Are we having a short business meeting now?
Yeah, we're gonna have a short 10-15 minute UDCal business meeting. Everyone's welcome to stay or go, whatever you feel like doing. But
Well,
I'm gonna,
I'll jump off in just a minute. Emily, I want to thank you